Hi, Jason. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast today. So
My pleasure.
I normally like to start these interviews by going back to the beginning, to your childhood. And I was wondering, like back then when you were a child, how would your mom have described you?
I think my mom is like a typical Asian parent. She was very proud of her elder son. So I think she would describe me as I would say smart, talkative, and yeah, smart and talkative. I think that are the two main attributes I think she would describe me with.
Yeah. And do you think that talkativeness like ever landed you in trouble before? Do you remember the first time that happened?
Yeah, a lot, but it's not so much trouble. Like I was the kind of talkative child in school where I was just mischievous, but I didn't disrupt the class. I just like to talk with my friends. Sometimes a bit cheeky with the teachers, but nothing that will get me into big trouble, I would say.
Yeah. And do you think there's anything in your childhood that influenced you into wanting to be a comedian?
I think as a kid, I liked comedy. I like funny things. I was drawn naturally to funny things like, we all read Reader's Digest. My mom was subscribed to Reader's Digest, and at the end of every serious story or article, there's like a filler where people write in their anecdotes and whatever. And I was always interested to read those instead of the actual serious articles. Then I've discovered laughter, the best medicine, and humor, all in a day's work, humor in uniform, all the joke segments, and I tend to read them first. So from a very young age, I was drawn to funny stuff, jokes, comedy, that kind of stuff.
But did it ever cross your mind that I want to make that my full-time job?
Oh no, in the beginning, no. Of course, in the beginning, I was the typical guy typical boy who wanted to, study hard, get into science stream, and do something in the sciences, i.e., medicine.
And how did medicine come about? Because I read that your parents didn't want you to do medicine because it's quite expensive, right? And you were the one
Yeah,
pushing for it.
it's not like they were pushing me to do medicine because, yes, like you say, it's very expensive. Um, I always liked the sciences, and I think from that POV point of view of a precocious child, medicine seems to be the pinnacle of the sciences, at the very top of the scientific field. You get to help people and apply science. So I think that's what drew me into it. And yeah, and then once I finished my A levels, I wanted to apply to medical school.
Yeah. And you went to Penang Medical College and you twinned with University College Dublin. Was it everything that you thought it would be?
Yeah. I mean, my favorite medical school years were really interesting. 2.5 years in Dublin, 2.5 years in Penang. So the 2.5 years in Dublin was one of the best years of my life because, there's a lot of freedom being in such a safe country. I met my future wife there, and it was a very pleasant moment. It was fun to just worry about exams at the time. And during my medical
Fun.
school years, yeah.
Fun to worry about exams. I think that
Yeah,
was the last thing
as
for
in,
me.
yeah. No, as in looking back in retrospect, that is fun when that's the only worry you have. And then I also started. My first job was in Ireland. I worked as a waiter in an Irish pub called McSorley's it was in Ranelagh, Dublin, and yeah, it was my first job. It paid quite well because the Irish people, they tip their waiters very generously, so we'll get paid like €7.65 an hour. That's
That's
minimum wage.
great. That's
Yeah.
great.
And then on top of that, you get tip, so you can easily double your hourly wages with the tips. So yes, just a good pay, very tiring work, but it's nice because you get to experience the Irish life. Because for the Irish people, the pubs and drinking is like the pulse of the Irish society. So when you observe in the pubs, you're observing a very keenly Irish life.
And were you
So
never
then after,
drunk? Sorry, go on.
no. That's the thing. I'm a teetotaler, so I never drink because I get very bad reactions to alcohol. So yeah,
Same.
I don't drink at all. So that's a blessing in disguise. And so that was my 2.5 years in Dublin. Also formative years because that's when I discovered my passion for traveling. Travel a lot. Anytime there were winter holidays, summer holidays, Easter holidays, or even a particularly long weekend, we'll travel outside of Dublin. And the best thing about Europe is that such a diverse range of countries within such a short distance. So we travel everywhere. I think we practically covered almost all of Europe.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think at the time
yeah,
as well as students, you get like the best discounts that you will never get after.
yeah. They have like if you have an international student card, you go to certain cities, you get a student discount, and then like they have the don't know what, the Euro Rail Pass or something, where it's like
Yes.
you like one flat fee, you get to ride on the trains unlimited amount. So yeah, it's a good time to be a student, good time to be 21, good time to travel. So that was just 2.5 years. Then when it came back to Penang, it was a change of pace because we now have to see actual patients. People, that was our clinical years, and a rather how to say, a rude awakening to the real vigors of clinical life in Malaysia. I remember the first time one of the first patients I saw when I came back to Penang was this guy who, unfortunately, he was on a motorcycle. He somehow or other landed into a ditch, into a longkang, and the motorcycle exhaust landed on him while
Oh
he
no.
laid there in the. So he had suffered like third-degree burns right all the way into his muscle. So that was really gruesome as a to see as a 21-year-old, like first time, wow, this is how bad it can get. So, and then from there onwards, it was nonstop, this clinical practice for 2.5 years. Graduated, then I worked for 4.5 years in Penang.
Yeah. I think you were at Selayang Hospital, then you were at a government health clinic as well. And that whole thing lasted for around like 4.5 years. And during that time, you got your first open mic gig, as I understand it, in 2010 at Velvet Underground at
Yes,
Zouk. How did that
yes.
happen? Like, what's the story?
Oh, so so I've always liked stand-up comedy, of course, naturally, and my wife knew that I love stand-up comedy. My wife knew that I love to tell jokes also, of course. And then around 2010, there was a bunch of comedians from Malaysia. They were starting this group called the YCOM, which is Young Comedians of Malaysia. And there was a clip on YouTube where they were doing some stand-up or whatever, and I can't remember who it was who was in the clip. And then my wife looked at it, and then she looked at me and she said, "Jason, you can definitely do better." That's when I
I
thought,
love
oh
the
yeah,
confidence.
I was like, wow, it'd be nice to try. And then I got wind of this open mic gig in Kuala Lumpur. At the time, there's only one per month, one open mic gig per month. It was at Velvet Underground, Zouk, organized by Time Out KL Comedy Thursdays. So I emailed, no, I think I Facebook message or emailed Poon Chi Ho, who was the booker for the nights. I was given a 5-minute slot, and I remember I had to take 2 days off from work because I was working in Penang. So on the drive down, 4 hours. It was during the drive, because I drove down on the Thursday. The gig was on the Thursday night. It was during that drive that I formulated all the stories, all the jokes I want to tell. Went to the gig, and I had 5 minutes. I did 9 minutes, but the crowd liked it. So I think that was the most life-changing moment for me. And it was in June 2010. Absolutely life-changing, because after that, I decided I was going to do stand-up comedy, and then never look back.
Yeah, and that was the time 2010 when comedy was just coming into Malaysia, right? So the opportunities weren't that great. So how were you finding those like stages for you to put yourself out there?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, there were very few stages. And the thing about it is, I'm kind of glad that I started comedy when the scene started. So it gave me lots of future opportunities. So Time Out KL was the only open mic show, or rather the only stand-up comedy show in KL at the time. And it's only once a month. Then this local outfit called Comedy Club Comedy Club KL. It's not actually a club, but it's a events company which started to do headline shows in partnership with some people in Singapore. So what they do is they bring in like international headliners from say Australia or the UK or America. So they come out, they can do a gig in Singapore, then they do a gig in Hong Kong, then they do Hong Kong and then Singapore and then Kuala Lumpur and then maybe Bangkok and then they fly back. So it's a nice loop. So they did their shows also once a month, and slowly other shows start to creep in. And at the time also, my second gig at Time Out KL Comedy Thursdays, Douglas Lim was headlining, and Douglas Lim saw me perform. He liked my stuff, and he offered me a spot in his Malaysian Association of Chinese Comedians, the MACC annual shows. So I opened for them, and so there was a whole other branch of opportunities. And I think I would say it's nice for me to see my personal growth in tandem or in parallel with the industry's growth. Now, like if I can step out and say that Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur has the best stand-up comedy scene in the region, and that's the region that includes Manila, Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, and all these different comedy scenes grew in roughly the same rate, at roughly the same rate as the rest of us. We are separate, but we grew together. So it's quite amazing to watch now.
Yeah, and when you mean growth, do you mean like more people were becoming comedians or more people were also coming to the shows as well?
Oh, both. More comedians coming up, definitely. Now you have like anywhere between say 10 to 12 regular professional comedians and a whole bunch of newcomers, newbies, rookies, open micers. Then there's another layer of regular performers who are about to become headliners in their own right. So the scene has grown exponentially, and also the audiences. My God, a lot of them are coming out to shows right now, and I would say with some degree of confidence that stand-up comedy is, I think, the best performing live show business-wise.
In what sense?
As in, like, you would find that most people would rather pay money to go and watch a stand-up comedy show as opposed to say a play or a musical or a local concert. And I think it's also a lot to do with how the business of stand-up comedy is. It's like stand-up comedy is so simple. You don't need a huge stage or a set or multiple players banging on instruments or a huge cast to coordinate. All you need is just one person or a few fellas with a microphone, and you're pretty much sorted. So with that kind of business model, I think it's very sustainable to do stand-up comedy, and a lot of people are coming and supporting live stand-up comedy shows. So it's very nice to see.
Was it lucrative even back then when you were just starting, or do you feel like you had to sell yourself short just to get the gigs and put yourself out there?
Oh, I think, definitely. I think it was lucrative in the very beginning. It started to become lucrative, but as more and more people wanted to come and watch stand-up comedy, and as the industry grew and the demand grew, then it became it became less of a struggle to make money from live shows. All you need is some business acumen, how to market yourself, sell your shows, and then you can make I wouldn't say enough for a year, but pretty decent if you think about how long it takes to tour and all that.
Yeah. And you mentioned MACC earlier. Is collaborations with other comedians, because I understand there were 4 of you in there. Is it a rare thing? Because you guys were together for almost a decade.
Yeah. That's a sharp observation. No, it's very rare. Yes, indeed. It's rare, I think, because stand-up comedy is very individual in its execution. At the end of the day, it's just one person doing jokes. It's not like we are a band where you need all four components to be there to see the Beatles, or to see like Maroon 5. You need all five of them there. Whereas stand-up comedy is just one after the other.
And I read that it takes you 6 months just to prepare for one show, which is a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, so material-wise, yes, it may take that long, and then the prep that goes with it, the logistics. So Douglas ran the whole show by himself. Originally, he just wanted a way to do stand-up comedy and to show everybody that, hey, Douglas Lim can do stand-up comedy, and now please hire him to perform at your corporate gigs. So he priced the tickets really cheaply, and because he didn't want to do it alone, so he brought along Poon Chi Ho and Kwa Jian Han to do it with him. So the tickets were dirt cheap. When we started, tickets could go all the way down to 30 ringgit per ticket. And when I personally feel that when you factor in how good the show was, for 30 ringgit, you get 90 minutes of very, very, four guys putting a lot of hard work. It's way more than your money's worth. So slowly after that, the momentum built, and a lot of people love the MACC because you get to see four Chinese guys with different styles of comedy in one show. But after a while, I like to say this to them, like the collective strength of the show was always more than the sum of our individual parts. Okay, so the fact that all four of us combined, the reach is more than if we have done separately. But as the years go by, that became less and less so, because now people want to see Jason Leong only, or people want to see 1 hour of Douglas. People who like Douglas may not want to pay to see Chi Ho or Jen Han or Jason, and people who want to pay to watch Jen Han may not want to watch Jason or Chi Ho or Douglas. So in that respect, after 10 years, it was time to call it quits. It was time to stop. And after a while, I think we were also starting to use it as a crutch. Like, okay, every year I'm going to do 20 minutes of new material, and that's all I have for 1 year. When in fact, I would say it's best to have 1 new hour every year. So it was a good time. Last year was our last show. It was a good time to stop, and each one of us focus on our careers.
Yeah. And drawing back to when you first were joining MACC, I understand 2013 was quite an important year for you. Like there was the 23rd of January 2013 event, which was very memorable. Could you share that?
2013, that one, yes. I bombed badly at this gig. It was just not just a bomb. It was a bomb where I did badly in between two other comedians. The first comedian did well. I bombed after that, and then the guy who came out after this completely killed it. So you can't say it was a crowd. It was just me. It was me, Jason Leong, doing a bad show. And what made it tragically funny was the guy who got us the gig is a friend of ours. His name is Jay. So Jay got us this gig, and it was Jay's friend's company. So I can't remember the friend's name. So right before we went on stage, we were having dinner, and the friend came up to us and said, "Hey guys, if this gig goes well, I think I'm going to get a promotion, right?" Just kind of joking about it, right? And then, so when I bombed so badly, the event, the company's boss was upset.
Can you explain what bomb means?
I'm sure everyone knows what bomb is. Bomb is do badly. In stand-up comedy, it's a very violent jargon. Bomb, if you bomb means you do badly. If you kill, means you do well.
So bomb means no one laughed. It was just
bomb means nobody laughs. It's like the audience has just been exploded because no one is laughing. Like everyone's dead. But if you kill the audience, means you're doing well. So it's very, very
You're
weird.
Both dead anyway.
Yeah, very weird jargon. So I did badly, and after the show, because I did so badly, I remember so the company's big boss was upset. The event company was upset because the event company kind of green-lit me to perform. Jay was upset. Jay's friend was upset. And the other two comedians were upset because I kind of stank the show. And And I remember feeling so bad and nearly crying. And 23rd January is my birthday. So the biggest bomb of my life on my birthday. Not till today, nothing has rivaled that bomb.
And looking back, like, why do you think it was that bad? Was it because the jokes really weren't that good, or just the audience wasn't suited?
Well, I say you can't blame the audience because the other two comedians did well. So it is definitely my material. So after that, I went home. I tweaked it a little bit, tried to become more friendly in my approach, and since then, my betting average has improved. So that bomb was bound to happen. I'm glad it happened early on so that I could take stock. And I'm sure in the future I'll bomb again and then and improve again further after that.
Yeah. What amazed me when I was doing the research was that you had this terrible thing that happened at the beginning of the year, but then the end of 2013, you decided to quit full time. So, like, what was the thought process in terms of deciding to jump?
Yeah. Well, I think not really a thought process because so at that time, one of the biggest or rather one of the biggest highlights of the industry in the region at the time was doing this competition called the annual International Hong Kong Comedy Competition. So the guy who ran it, he ran it out of Hong Kong. The prize was quite good because I can't remember how much money you get. Was it 20 or 30 or 40,000 Hong Kong dollars? Can't remember. Let me check. I think I have a photo of the check right here.
I actually saw the photo too. I just didn't look at the number. I didn't look at the number.
Yeah, no, it's quite a sizable amount. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so it's quite a lot of money. 40,000 Hong Kong. Okay. So 40,000 Hong Kong, there is like almost 20,000 Malaysian ringgit at the time. But the more important prize was you get a spot at Gotham Comedy Club, Laugh Factory in LA, and the Acme Club in, I want to say, Mississippi.
Some of the biggest stages.
Yeah, 3 rather prestigious stand-up comedy clubs in the US. Laugh Factory, Gotham, and Acme. So 2012, a friend of mine from Singapore, Rishi Budrani, he won the competition. And, and I was amazed, like, wow, this guy is not funny and he still won. But no, but I have to thank him for winning because he won. It made me go, oh wow, means it's possible, And I know his set, and that 7 minutes he had, because we each performed 7 minutes. That 7 minute set he had was really tight and really good, So I thought, I need to get a set that's as tight as that. So in 2013, I knew that I was going to join the year after, right? I don't know whether I was going to win, but I'm going to give it my best. And that was the September of 2013. So I bombed in January. So I had 8 months to work on myself. And then September, I was hopefully in my head, I hoped I was ready then. So quite a long gap. And I think what is more memorable is like I was actually working full time at the time. I was working 8 to 5 at the government clinic, Clinic Kesihatan Taman Medan. So I had to take leave to go to Hong Kong and perform. And you have to buy your own flight ticket to Hong Kong and find your own accommodation because there's no guarantee that you're going to, so yeah, that was my motivation, which is, so the next year, so you win the prize in 2013, 2014, you get to travel. So I used the prize money to travel. I went with my wife, went to New York, went to LA, and it was great. And went to Vegas. So it's great fun, and it was eye-opening to see, what stand-up comedy was like outside of Malaysia.
Yeah. And what was it like? Was it very different from Malaysian stand-up comedy?
Oh, vastly. At the time, it was a much bigger pool of people, of talent, a much more intimidating industry. And the audiences, of course, at the time were way ahead of Malaysian audiences in terms of appreciating the art form.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned once before, that it's actually the Western power that controls the comedy scene, right? So it's important to put yourself out there as well.
Yeah. Currently, the biggest markets for stand-up comedy the US, the UK, Australia, all very, very Anglo, very Western, how to say, seats of power. So like the three most prestigious stand-up comedy festivals are the Edinburgh Comedy Festival, Just for Laughs in Montreal, and the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, all Anglo, white controlled. And then what else? The biggest, like even Netflix is in head office is in LA. All the big names are from those areas. So yeah, it's important to try and tap into those markets. However, I think what is interesting is that the world or the industry will increasingly, albeit slowly, turn its gaze towards Asia. Like right now, if you just do a bit of research into the Indian comedy market, as in from India, not Malaysian Indian, but the India stand-up comedy market, it is absolutely insane. Because of the sheer size of the population, you get so many more talented stand-up comedians, and their growth is nigh exponential. And you get like, like my my I would say my peers, my contemporaries, they can have like 2 million Twitter followers.
Wow.
Their reach is very vast and powerful, and the Indian diaspora is so much bigger. So like they can tour around the world, just selling out theaters to Indian nationals spread across the world. They can come to Melbourne and sell out theaters. They go to London, sell out theaters. Go to America, a whole year tour of America and sell out. It's amazing. It's amazing to see their power and reach. And like you said, like I said, because it's so many people, 1 billion or more in Indians, the stand-up comedians that rise from this is the talent is awe-inspiring. So I predict that in the future, the gaze of the Western powers of stand-up comedy will turn invariably towards more Asian performers. Even right now, I was remarking on this with another interview. The guy, okay, the guy who reviews the BBC's Cook Rice segment,
Uncle Roger.
Uncle Roger, whose real name is Nigel Ng.
Yeah.
There's another Apollo performing award-winning comedian in the UK called Phil Wang. And then, of course, we know Daily Show's Ronnie Cheng. These three assholes are all Malaysian.
Yeah.
But they're all far-flung into the Western powers, the Western market. So I think I'm inspired by them because knowing that they can make it, they have opened the doors, and it's like how Rishi has done it for me. Like someone from Southeast Asia can win the competition, and now I feel like a Malaysian, if you work hard enough, you can make it in London or in New York.
Do you not feel that with internet as it is, that you could reach that audience? But it's different, isn't it? Because it's stand-up, you need a live audience.
Yeah. I mean, even right now, when I with my Netflix special being in 190 countries, I still don't get enough people in the UK or the US or in Australia to watch. It is mostly Malaysians who are everywhere who watches my stuff. So it's important to make your presence known. However, due to COVID, it's hard to travel now to all these countries and perform in those countries. So it's going to be a bit tough. But one has to try. It's no point being a big fish in a small pond. You have to swim out to the ocean once in a while.
Yeah. So back then in 2014, you were going all over to all these different places. Did you ever feel that pressure to be less Malaysian with your jokes? Because you're quite Malaysian, but you do contextualize for those who don't understand things, right?
So I remember when I was doing that competition in Hong Kong, someone said, after the show, hey, I'm from Singapore. It's nice to hear your Malaysian accent. It's great that you don't change your accent. And I had a thought about it. It's like, wow, I never thought of changing my accent. Although sometimes when I perform to non-Malaysians, I may speak a little slower or enunciate a bit clearer, but I don't intend on changing my approach. As long, what I think is funny, I'll try and make it funny for them also. What is different, just the content. Like for my Netflix special, I did I think 10 to 15 minutes of jokes, which are Malaysian political jokes, which no one else out of Malaysia would understand. More, even less find funny. So I took it out from the special because no point. So I wanted every joke in the special to have that freedom where you don't have to be Malaysian or live in Malaysia to get to find me funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, during that trip in 2014, was there any particularly memorable occasion that comes to mind?
It's memorable because it's not memorable. So I was doing my set at Gotham Comedy Club, finished my set, and Gotham Comedy Club is it's not just a comedy club. It's like a comedy club, but it's like a restaurant. So it's like there's a stage and there's little tables where everyone.
It's quite luxurious.
Huh?
It's quite luxurious. I was looking at the interior.
Yeah.
Really done up.
Yeah, it's done in the vein of like the Comedy Store in I think the closest to come is the Sydney Comedy Store. I think it looks like that. So I finished my set. I sat down, watching the show, and then I turned to my left, and the left is the main door. I turned to my left, and right there, standing at the door, is Jerry Seinfeld. Okay, and my mind was blown because why, and the culture in stand-up comedy clubs in the US is that on any given day, any major headliner, even the likes of Jerry Seinfeld, can pop by and drop in unannounced, unmarketed, unplugged, and do a set for like 20 minutes right before the headliner comes on. And usually they will come and work on the stuff, practice the material. And that night was Jerry Seinfeld. And I was told that the week before was Louis C.K. and the week before was some guy named Jim Ross or something, I can't remember.
Wow, so it's quite consistent.
Yeah, so these big names will drop. And sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. So, and Jerry Seinfeld was there. So he went on and did 20 minutes. And after he said, he just so casually goes, so any questions? And then one guy goes, in the crowd goes, why are you here? Like, as in, why are you Jerry Seinfeld in the Gotham Comedy Club? You can sell out stadiums. And Jerry Seinfeld says, even at my level, I still have to work on my material, finding the next joke, polish my stuff. So, and I thought, man, that's great. And then the same guy asks, what is your favorite joke? And Jerry Seinfeld says, oh, I kind of like the one about the horse on the racetrack where you don't tell him it's a race. And then the guy in the audience goes, what would you care to bust it out now? And this is a joke from many years ago, and Jerry Seinfeld performed it at the drop of a hat, beat for beat. I don't think he missed even a single punchline. So, and then after that, why it's not memorable? Because I wanted to take a photo with him, but he already left.
Oh.
Yeah, the bouncer says he doesn't do photos.
Yeah. Wow. So that is basically, that was the thing. I remember hearing your story, and I was very surprised that he asked the question, like, what, any questions? Yeah. Like, why would he say that? It doesn't seem to gel with the whole funny, get you laughing, and then you go, any questions?
Yeah, because I think he already tried 20 minutes of new material, so he kind of felt proud of himself. Then he just casually goes, because you never know. I think you never know by asking questions, you can mine some funny stuff. You never know.
And he's quite different from like Stephen Colbert, right, who would have like an entire army of writers writing for him, but he seems to be going around trying out. Or is it just different?
Yeah, I think they're doing different shows, but I don't know if I don't know if Jerry Seinfeld doesn't have an army of writers. He may have. Because I've heard of stand-up comedians having writers help them. As long as they make the joke their own, it's fine. Stephen Colbert, that was another experience because I went to watch the taping of Stephen Colbert.
Oh wow!
And the Colbert Report right before he was announced he got the Late Show, but these were the few last episodes, and
how was that?
It was great because the prep for the show was amazing because you have lots of people telling you keep your energy up. We have audio. We don't add in audio. What you give is what you get on the show. We need your support. We need your applause. We need your cheers. And right before they tape, they get a stand-up comedian to come and like warm up the crowd,
Wow.
get them ready to laugh, tell jokes a little bit, make fun of the audience, you know. Then after he's done, Stephen Colbert comes out and takes questions from the floor. Like, okay, anybody got any questions? And then they ask questions and he answers. The reason for it is to humanize himself before he goes behind the camera. And I remember because when he came out, he was full of energy. He high-fived all his staff and crew. He took all the questions. And then he sat on his chair to start the taping. And right before they go to tape, he looks at us and goes, hey guys, have a great show. And I thought that's really cool because usually we wish the performer have a great show, but he wishes the audience have a great show. I thought that was so cool. And that kind of, the whole experience really cemented him as one of my heroes. And I hope one day I get to meet him in person. So then, and I also managed to watch the taping of Jon Stewart in New York.
Wow.
And it follows the same, the format, exactly the same format. Exactly the same format.
So how do they distinguish from each other then?
Wow. By then they were always very different. Jon Stewart was himself making fun of political news, and Stephen Colbert played a character who was an idiot Republican who is also named Stephen Colbert. So very different shows. And what I learned from this experience was the amount of prep that they imposed on each episode is amazing. The whole experience is 2 hours, but the taping is just half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you took that back, and then you had one of your best nights by opening for Harith Iskandar that year.
Yeah. No, this was in
same year.
No, 2015. So
2015.
2014, and then 2015 was opening for Harith. That was great because there were 9,000 people at the stadium. Certainly quite a big, it's our biggest gig ever, and it was a great night.
Yeah, and it took, I realized that your first solo show happened in 2017. So was that like that whole period, it took you that long to feel that you were ready for doing those 4 nights?
Yeah, I think it was ready as in I had 1 hour, and also ready in the sense that I have enough fan base to justify doing like 3 or 4 nights in PJ, and making sure that it wasn't embarrassing, like half filled. And luckily it was sold out on 3 nights or 4 nights, can't remember. So yeah, it was good. Then I knew that the next year I had to top it, and yeah, after that. So ever since then, I make sure I have a new show a new hour every year. I'm due to start writing for my next one.
And how long does it normally take you to polish something up?
Oh, it can take a few months actually.
Yeah.
It can take a few months, and even then, it never stops being polished. So even when I go on tour, the jokes are constantly improved on bit by bit. One of the best examples is when I perform at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. I do 22 shows, Tuesday to Sunday, every day.
Yeah.
Tuesday to Sunday for 22 shows. So once you have that muscle, you improve a bit. So by the end of that 22 shows, you have a very strong hour. And even when I taped for my Netflix special, by the time I went to tape, I had performed the show 45 times already.
Wow. And that was in 2018, right? When you began. And I read that you put in your own money, 150,000 just to tape it without any like confirmation that Netflix or anyone would take it up.
Nope. So I knew I wanted to be on Netflix. So
why Netflix though?
It's the only platform that is worthy of my time, because like other platforms have very limited reach. YouTube is free, so you won't get your money back. And
through ads though.
yeah, actually you can, but you won't. HBO wasn't in our region. Only Netflix had the reach and the prestige, because Netflix is cornering the market for stand-up comedy. So that's why I knew I wanted to be on Netflix. I had no deal yet, but I thought, you know what? They don't come knocking on my door. I'm going to record my special, polish it up, and I'll knock on their door. So that was the thinking, like that's the mindset.
And where was that inspiration from that you would just do it and then try to see if
Well,
anyone
there
bites?
was this comedian called Gina Yashere who had a similar story where she was already a big name in the UK, but she wanted more, so she moved to LA. She moved to LA first, and at the time, no one wanted to give her a special. So, in her own words, she paid for the special, shot it herself, and then she's managed to sell it to, I think, NBC or something. And then after that, she also managed to sell the next special to someone else. So, and then now she has a 30-minute set on Netflix called one of the show called Comedians Around the World or something. So yeah, she that hustle taught me, you know what? I don't have to wait for people. I'm gonna seize the day, shoot my special first, and then show it to you. And I think I'm the only comedian so far to have done that. To put up my money first and shoot it first. So no one else has a product to show the Netflix. So I think that was my upper hand. That.
Yeah, but it wasn't an easy ride for you. I mean, you shot in 2018. It was only released in 2020. So what happened in that intervening period?
In 2018, we tried to sell to Netflix via a local comedy promoter, but the deal didn't go through. I think they were not interested. And then 2019, I was producing 2 tours, so I just kind of gave up. And then 2020, MCO happened, so I was ready to put the stuff on YouTube. I almost pressed publish. I called my producer who produced the special me and said, hey, I'm gonna put this on YouTube because we're not making any money out of this. So maybe by putting on YouTube, you may get somewhere. And he gave me my blessing. And right after that phone call, I thought, I still want to try one last time. So I called someone from Netflix Asia. They have an office in Singapore. This guy came to watch my show in 2018. I gave him 2 free tickets to watch me in Singapore. He liked the show. We became friends. And then I asked him, what would it take to get me on Netflix? And then he goes, oh, we are now in a position to acquire finished products in Southeast Asia. Do you have anything to show? And I said, yes, of course. So I sent the link, and then 2 months later, the deal was sealed. I think it was 2 years of just hoping and not giving up for the 2 years. And then I'm lucky it paid off. So.
Yeah. And was it a lucrative deal? Because I was reading Hollywood Reporter saying that they would pay comics like 50 to 20 million for a 1 hour special.
Yeah, that's for the likes of Ellen DeGeneres, Chappelle, maybe Ricky Gervais, Jerry Seinfeld. No, nowhere near that amount. Nowhere near that amount.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that this will lead to other deals and other projects that I may get to work on with Netflix.
Yeah. And how has the reception been for your Netflix show, which is called #Blast?
Yeah, so far it's been very good on social media. So I blast it all on, I make an announcement on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn, Twitter. And I even had a media night where I invited some celebrities.
Hannah Yo went as well, I read.
Yeah, and it's so cool to have, I'm going to name drop some people right now, dropping shamelessly. Hannah Yo, YB Hannah Yo, YB Ong Ken Ming, Marina Mahate, Ambiga was there. Who else? Yuna, Elizabeth Tan,
Huge.
Joe Flizzo. Yeah, so they came and they liked it. So then they started spreading the word, and a lot of people knew about it. And so far, the user reviews have been very overwhelmingly positive. Everyone seems to like it. Surprisingly, a lot of Singaporeans love my stuff. Not Malaysians in Singapore, Singaporeans. So that's great. A lot of love coming from down south.
Maybe not the mainland Chinese.
Don't care about it. And then another surprising thing was a lot of a lot of fans allowed their children to watch my special, which is very liberal of them, I would say.
Despite the R rate.
Yeah, it's written there, R-rated, mature, whatever, foul language, they still... yeah, but so far, it's really on my... Especially on Instagram. A lot of people nowadays, they like to watch something and then they put on Insta stories.
Yeah,
Every
and
day
tag you.
I'm bombarded by Insta stories. And I thought, oh, okay. So it's been, I think, overwhelmingly positive, I think. Yeah.
Amazing. And what else? Because I was looking, like normally in COVID, everyone's like, oh, I'm so shocked. I can't believe this is happening. But I was looking through your body of work. You have done so much. And I was wondering, like, what was your first reaction to the lockdown? And how do you end up doing all these different things?
Oh, okay. So luckily, this year I plan to slow things down a little bit. So because last year was a very busy year, 2 major tours, and then my wife gave birth. So we entered 2019, and we entered 2020 with October, November, December, January, like a 3-month-old baby. So I already planned to, but I already planned to not do. So every year I do the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. So this year I already planned not to do the festival because it normally takes like a huge chunk of my calendar year. But this year I decided, okay, I'm going to take a break. And I was also going to if I was going to do a tour, it'd be end of the year. So I had not put down any investments or paid any deposits for rentals or venues. Then when the when the lockdown happened, I thought, oh, okay, no, never mind. I'm not losing anything. I'm just going to go with the flow. But what started happening was I started doing this thing called the all-day show with no budget with Jason Leong. Because you know how I love the Daily Show with Stephen Colbert. I decided to do an all-day show because you can watch it all day and with no budget to make it sure people know that there's really no budget. I'm everything. I'm the writer, researcher, the editor, the performer, the recorder, everything I do myself. So that got a good response. And then I realized that a lot of people, they just want someone to talk about the bullshit that is happening in our country on a daily basis. And let me tell you, if you do a show with that premise, talk about the nonsense that is happening in our country, be it politically or socially, you'll never run out of material. You will never what am I going to talk about today? No, there is always going to be something. And if I do it like weekly, trust me, within 5 days, I have enough material for like one show. So that kept me going. And then, throughout the MCO, as I became more and more bored, I thought I'm going to upload my clips on YouTube, my stand-up comedy clips, the one I shot in 2018. Mm-hmm. I thought, let's try YouTube, let's try Netflix. And then it became a reality. So, yeah.
Amazing. And I read that from an interview that you said it before, social media, you could do a joke that did really well in front of a live audience, but it doesn't have the same reaction online. And like the people wouldn't love it as much.
Yes. Because when you, different context, because when you perform in front of a live audience, the live audience they are there to watch and laugh. But when you have the clip out on social media, the people watching the clip, they may be having a bad day. They are in their office, in the car, or in the middle of traffic jam, or just came back from a long day at work. So they are not entirely in the mood to laugh, and then they see something that they don't like, and then they start picking on it. They tell their friends, look at this idiot, and then the friends pile on, mob mentality ensues, and then you get this kind of backlash. So it's very different context. But by and large, by now it's normal. It's water off our backs. It's gonna, yeah.
So you learn to just ignore it. It doesn't really matter because you don't know them anyway. Yeah. But then some
Especially
of
it goes. The thing is, it always gets people upset when it's a funny joke. Oh. When you can hear the audience laughing, and it's at an idea which you yourself may not agree with, that's when you get offended, because you know that there are people agreeing with an idea that you don't agree with. If the joke was not funny, people don't laugh, they won't care, because you did not manage to convince those people in the audience. By having people laughter is a form of surrender. So the fact that this comedian, whoever he may be or she may be, has managed to convince an entire crowd to agree with his blasphemous idea or her blasphemous idea, that scares people who are against the idea. And then they must comment, how can you say this?
What has been the most contentious idea that you put forward?
Oh, so many, wow. On stand-up, on stand-up, on stand-up. Oh, well, okay, the good one. I put a clip up where I said traditional doctors are bullshit. And then you get a whole gamut of people who agree with me, and then a whole other group of people who like, how dare you insult our ancestors? You are a disgrace to the Chinese culture. One day you will get a disease that only traditional Chinese medicine can cure. For which I say that is like saying there is an economic crisis where only a feng shui master can solve. It's not going to happen. So they are so, the idea of traditional medicine is so ingrained in a lot of people's minds that to have someone call out the blatant bullshitness of it is very scary. So then they must lash out, like, my father was cured by traditional Chinese medicine when he had this, when Western medicine couldn't, and it's all anecdotal, low ranking evidence which will not hold water in any scientific journal. So after a while, you just, whatever, like you continue believing. Like, I hope you don't get some very bad health effects from taking traditional Chinese medicine, but you do you lah.
Do you ever feel that you've gone too far at times?
Never.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, so in when I've put out a joke, when I perform a joke in stand-up comedy on a stand-up comedy stage, I'm always 100% okay with whatever I say. If I do something at an open mic and it's not ready yet and people find offensive, then that is my escape clause, because I'm not ready to share this with the world yet. But the moment I've gone through all the open mic shows and now I charge people I charge people money to buy a ticket to come and see me, and I perform the joke. All the jokes I perform, I'm completely fine with. I've never felt that, I've gone too far. Because if I felt I've gone too far, I will pull back and not do the joke in front of a live audience. But the moment I'm ready to put my face on a poster, come and see me, I'm going to do the joke on stage, I've never gone too far.
But I think, especially in Malaysia, there are certain lines we can't cross, like don't talk about the royals or stuff like that, right? So you just have to be aware.
We have the 4 R's. Not sure if you know, we have the 4 R's. You can't touch about, in the media, mainstream media, there's unspoken and unwritten rule. You can't touch about 4 R's. Royalty, race, religion, Rosma. This is back then. True. It's true. It existed. So now there is some leeway. You definitely can't joke about royalty.
Yeah.
You can joke about certain religions. I think Rosma is fair game right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are still restrictions, yes.
Yeah. And what do you think is the future for you now?
Well, now, well, this year my plan was actually to spend a month in New York to do gigs. Obviously, that can't happen. So hopefully next year, fly to other countries and perform. Maybe London, Dubai, definitely New York, LA. And one of my other goals this year was to get into Just for Laughs Montreal. Just for Laughs is a very prestigious stand-up comedy festival. And
all the big agents go there.
Yeah, you're right. All the big agents. It's so weird. All the
But why Canada though? That's random.
Yeah, the network TV people from America will go to Montreal for this festival, and then they pick out their names, who they like, and then they fly back. They're like, it boggles my mind why there is no New York Comedy Festival. It's just insane. So that is my first. Yeah, I want to do Just for Laughs Montreal. But that's next year, I think.
Yeah. And how about Fight for Gotcha, which is happening this Friday?
Oh, my plan is to win that fight.
Can you share with us those who don't know what it's about?
Oh, so Gotcha Call is this brand of prank calls that is made by the radio announcers at hits.fm or hits. It's no longer hits.fm, just hits. It's been on for 20 years a day, I think, because, or 21 years, because
I grew up with it
yeah,
every
and
morning.
and so it must be at least 20 years. And all my friends, to a man and woman, have agreed that it's time for it to go. It has outstayed its welcome. And the genesis of this was in February during the political crisis. I put out a video saying that, look, I have the numbers to be prime minister. Um, this is my manifesto. As prime minister, I will enact legislation to make sure that radio DJs who make prank calls lose their citizenship. So then Arnold from Hits, who does the prank calls, he says, you know what, this is very funny, but he's challenging us. So why not you, Ian, his partner, challenge me to a grappling match to see whether Gotcha stays or Gotcha goes.
I love how Arnold pushed Ian into the ring, not himself.
Yes, it's such a Arnold's such a batu api, you know. So yeah, so it'd be interesting. I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've done it for many years, and I'm hoping that with this fight, which will take place 2nd of October, not only do I get to end Gotcha, but I get to show people what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. It's a very beautiful and very useful martial art to have. And this is something that I encourage everyone to do. If you want to do one martial art, which is for the sake of your health and self-defense, try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It will change your world.
And one random fact I read is that you want to be J-Lo in any film that's coming up.
Yeah, not any film. So Jolo. You know, there was a report that Michelle Yeoh's company had bought the rights to the $1 billion whale, and that they were gonna make a movie out of it. Now, the movie itself is, the storyline of Jolo is fascinating, and I hope that, you know, I get to play him.
Yeah.
But I think
who would you like your other cast members to be?
I don't know, man. Some really hot girls, I hope. Yeah, but I hope. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I have no acting experience or chops other than I look at the guy. But yeah, who knows?
You never know. You're already on Netflix. You're more legit than most people anyway.
Yeah, man. Come on, Tan Sri Michelle Yeoh, please, man. If you're watching this.
And so there's so much that's written about you in the media. I wonder if there's one thing that you could share that no one knows about you.
Wow. One thing that no one knows. Let me think. This one must think a bit. Yeah, a lot of things. Okay, the media knows I do jiu-jitsu. Yeah, what do people not know about me? Let me think. You can edit this out, right?
Yeah, I can. I'm glad I'm making you think.
Let me say, then you know where to edit from here. Yeah, I think the media knows everything. Okay, I think I think the people till to this day, they really don't know how scary the process of stand-up comedy can be, because they always see, you know, or the Netflix special, which is like, oh, it's already all tried and tested, so of course it's going to be funny. Or the shows that I put on, you know, by the time I asked people to come and buy ticket, I didn't know the show's going to be good. It's the lead up to it, when you try jokes and they don't work. And of course, comedians, we don't put up our failures, right? So they don't see our failures, but my God, sometimes you see a joke evolve from shit to gold. So I think a lot of people don't realize that. That's why till to this day, people always, they trivialize stand-up comedy. They're like, yeah, I also can do it. Yeah, just tell jokes, just jokes, right? Yeah, it's the one of the hardest forms of art, doing stand-up comedy, because it looks easy, but my God, the amount of sweat and sometimes tears you go through to make a joke work. And that's why not a lot of people do stand-up comedy, because stand-up comedy, when you try, your ego really gets bruised and battered. Why would you put yourself through this torture? There are other easier ways to make money. Why am I doing this bullshit? And there's also a reason why stand-up comedy is an art form of the masses. So you never hear of this really rich, privileged guy or girl deciding, you know what, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. No, they don't have the ego for it. Their ego is too fragile. You need someone from the dirt, from the underground, with calloused hearts and roughened hands to do this, because mommy's boy and girl from the cozy mansions, they come, they do one time, they get booed off stage, they'll never come back. So that's why it is an art form of the masses.
Have you never felt like giving up?
Well, I think that when I born on my birthday, that was very close to giving up, of course. But I think that defined my character, because I knew then and then that I wanted to do this, because even at my lowest low, I was like, no, I'm going to come back again. I'm going to conquer this stage. I'm going to come back to another gig and do better. So that's why I knew that I wasn't going to give up easily. So I would say I've never come that close to giving up, but the closest was that 23rd January 2013.
Yeah. And I wonder, you were saying there, like turning shit into gold. Can you remember for an example of a shit that you turned into gold? The evolution.
Evolution. Let me think. Okay, let's say the joke from the Netflix special. Yeah, like the story about me using the stethoscope to get out of trouble. That's an example of a joke which I tried to do early on in my career, like mid 2014. Didn't really work, so I abandoned it because it's somehow or other it just didn't get it to click. But once I became more comfortable on stage with more experience, then I tried the idea again with a different approach. Then it worked.
What was the different approach though?
Can't remember. I think I was just more deliberate in the setup. Spend more time explaining that this stethoscope, I put it in my car. I use it to distract. I use it to get out of traffic summonses. And I think the ending was also a bit different. In the current ending is he lets me go because I had put on jumper cables on my neck. In the first iteration, when I said with the stethoscope on my neck, I said, please let me go. There's a man whose heart has stopped in the emergency department. I have to go. And then the guy didn't believe me. Then I said, please, he's also a police officer. And then the guy goes, oh, really? Then he escorts me to the hospital. And then I don't know how to end the story. So that's why it kind of went flat. But,
quite different. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of evolution takes, yeah. And there's one article that Jerry Seinfeld says that how he was trying a joke which didn't work for many years. And then he said that something about marriage is like playing chess, but the pieces are smoke and the board is water. Something like that, right? Something like that. But he didn't get the laughter. Then 1 year, many years after that, he finally gets it. When he does the joke, he does this. Marriage is like playing chess, except that the pieces are smoke and the board is water. This motion.
Oh.
It was too much work for the audience to get the board. So he had to draw it in the air with his hands. Something like that, which is so interesting because it took him years, Jerry Seinfeld, to get that. Instead of saying chessboard, he has to say chessboard and do this.
Kudos to him for trying all these different iterations to find that.
That's why stand-up is all about that the lonely grind on the road.
Yeah. And for those who want to do stand-up, what is your advice for them?
Definitely try first. I think there's a lot of, it's one of the art forms where you just have to do it. You can't rehearse for it. You can't prepare for it. You can't audition for it. You just have to do it. Your first audition gig is already a stand-up comedy gig in front of a live audience. Nothing else in the world is doing it the first time. The first time you fly a plane is on a simulator, not an actual plane. The first time you do surgery is on a dummy or a virtual simulator and not on an actual patient who with blood and guts. Stand-up comedy is very different. The first time you do stand-up comedy, the first time you try it, it is stand-up comedy. So a lot of people ask me, hey, I want to try, where should I go? Just go and do it. 3 minutes of material, go and do and perform. Die or not, never mind. Come and do it again and again. So that's one, do it. And number two, you have to persevere. Like a lot of things in life, the reason why we, the regulars, the professionals are still in the business is just because we are stubborn. We just stayed with it. There are more talented people than us who have dropped out simply because their ego can't take it, or they just want to do other things which are easier, nothing wrong, or they want to pursue other careers which make them more money. That's great. But to be a stand-up comedian, you have to earn the title and you gotta stay with it you're gonna suck until you get good. So
yeah. And what do you think is your biggest struggle right now, having done this for so long, like almost a decade, right?
biggest struggle. I think biggest struggle is it's the same struggle since the beginning, just to write new material, to write new jokes. That is always the hardest. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jason, for your time.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I normally end with these questions. So the first question is, do you feel that you've found your why?
My why? Oh yeah. I always count myself very lucky, and I've told this to my friends. I'm very lucky because I've figured out two major questions that everyone needs to figure out, and some never do, and some take a long time. But I figured out I figured out what I want, and I figured out who I am. These are very important things people need to figure out. And if you figure out early, then it's great. So, and of course, the why comes easier when you know who you are and what you want, right? So I know that I want to be one of the best stand-up comedians that there is. Of course, it's a very lofty goal, but I know that if I aim for high goals, even if I miss it, I'm going to be somewhere up there. And and to provide for my family, stand-up comedy offers a very good work-life balance. I don't have to work as hard as my wife, who's a doctor. I used to be a doctor.
Yeah.
I get to spend Monday nights doing podcasts for 1 hour, like yours. I get to hang out with celebrities, and the the adrenaline rush of doing a good stand-up comedy gig is still one of the best feelings in the world. So yeah, I've definitely figured out my who, my what I want, and my why. So yeah.
And what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
A legacy of laughter.
Why not?
That'd be great actually.
Yeah.
Legacy of laughter. That sounds like a very cool title for a company.
Or for your next show.
I think right now, I mean, I don't know what's my long-term legacy is, but I always look to the greats, like my heroes, like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, Ricky Gervais, George Carlin, the best comedian that ever lived, and Dave Chappelle. So they all have a similar vein in that they speak truth to power. They call bullshit when they say bullshit. So I hope to be one of those comedians where when I call out bullshit, people listen and they go, yeah, you're right. And I do it in a funny way. That's why I do shows like the All Day Show with no budget, because I get to be a very low res, low pixelated, unvarnished backdoor Chinese knockoff version of my heroes, you know,
Yeah. And I love that
without
you
all the
also,
jazz.
yeah, and I love that you also like bring in actual frontliners to share their experience as well to your audience.
Yeah, that was my first 2 episodes. Yeah, but you know, like, yeah. So that's the kind of legacy I want to pursue, lah. I don't think I have it to leave yet. You know, like I don't have the things to. Hey, look at what I've done. But hopefully that's where I get to move forward to, lah. These are my heroes.
Yeah. And what do you think are the most important qualities a person should have to be a successful comedian?
I'd say the qualities are not very different from if you if you want to be successful in any other things, like perseverance, hard work, you know, never giving up. But more specifically, I think to be really successful, and I looked at I follow all the greats who have walked before me. I think as a stand-up comedian, we have to take risks, and not risks as in do risky material, but we have to be ready to fail. Okay, so it's very scary for a stand-up comedian to try new jokes and not get a laugh. It's very scary. It is, but it's very necessary. And a lot of some of the best stand-up comedians, they are not even sure that their jokes will get a laugh, but they want to do that joke. They take risk, and sometimes these risks will pay off immensely. So it's important to take risks as a stand-up comedian. You can't always do the safe material. And I've seen some comedians, they always stick to safe, you know, guaranteed will laugh because they know they'll laugh. They don't go into areas they're not comfortable with, and they'll always stay within the same range of success. Whereas the really great comedians, they push the boundaries, and they scare themselves in trying to be even funnier.
Can you give some examples of those who are pushing the boundaries?
Well, okay, let's say, well, Louis C.K. And I'm not saying that you should, you know, masturbate in front of women, but his materials he said that if I can bring audiences to a place where they don't normally laugh and I make them laugh, that means I have pushed the boundaries. Okay, Dave Chappelle, you know, nowadays it's very common for comedians to be very PC. Dave Chappelle doesn't buy into that. He is not PC, and he still gets people to laugh. You know, like which other comedian can say like, like, you know, I don't have a problem with transgender people. I never have, but I just find that it's very funny. I can't stop making jokes about them. It's a hilarious predicament. Like it touches a vein. It is not, you know, not a lot of comedians will do that, but you know, he does it. And I won't spoil the whole joke for you, but another hero of mine, Bill Burr, he did a joke, which I won't tell you what the joke is, but he starts with this line, he justifies it, and it's not offensive by the end of the joke. Okay, you should watch it. It's called Bill Burr, Paper Tiger. The line goes, he starts, you know what's hilarious about sexual assault? That's the line. That's the line. And then by the end of the whole bit, you will end up, yeah, actually, you're right. That is, you know, that's wow. That's how do you do that? You know?
Yeah, that's craft.
And that's why they are at the top of the game, because they've managed to, by over the years taking risks, they've reached a level where they've achieved mastery, as opposed to someone who never takes risks. You know, he waits near the shores, doesn't go into sea. You'll never be a great swimmer.
Yeah, incredible. And where do you think people can go to connect with you and find out more about what you're doing?
Well, you can find me on social media. You can just go to, you can see there, I put big there, right here on my name, Dr. Jason Leong.
I love you can do that.
OBS. So Dr. Jason Leong, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and more importantly, to see some of my best work, go to Netflix and search for #blessed or search my name, Jason Leong.
And it's available in 190 countries. So chances are
Yeah,
you can
baby,
find
except
it.
190 countries except China.
Oh no.
No, really, the Netflix, there's no Netflix in China.
I didn't know that. They're missing out. And is there
Okay.
anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't shared yet?
Nothing. That's all.
Yep.
Ola, share the link to this podcast to your friends so that everyone can watch and listen.
Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Jason, for your time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.